Hey Sugar Geeks, Liz here. Today I'm going to show you how to make a classic charlotte cake from scratch. What is a charlotte cake? Well, a charlotte cake is a classic molded French dessert. So the first thing you want to do to make our charlotte cake is to make this simple syrup because this has to cool down. You could even make this days in advance if you wanted to. I'm just doing a very simple syrup, equal parts sugar and water. I'm doing 1 cup of each. And then I'm going to infuse a vanilla bean into the simple syrup just to give it a little bit more flavor. You're just gonna add both of these ingredients to a pot and then bring it to a boil. And as soon as it comes to a boil, set it aside to cool down. Then I like to pour the mixture into a bottle with a split vanilla bean and just let it hang out until it's time to use it. Next, we're gonna make our lady fingers. Yes, you can use store-bought, totally okay, but I don't know about you, but in Oregon, we don't really have lady fingers at the store and they're so easy to make, you might as well make them. First, we're going to add our egg yolks into the bowl of your stand mixer, or you can use a hand mixer for this. And then I'm gonna add my whisk. Okay, we're gonna bump it up to speed 4 and sprinkle in our sugar. And then we're gonna mix this on high to ribbon stage. What we're looking for is just the mixture to have tripled in volume and for it to be forming a ribbon on top. Okay, I'm gonna add my salt into my flour and just set that aside. We're gonna sift that into our mixture later. Let's go ahead and whip up our egg whites. These are room temperature so that they whip up nice and fluffy. Cold egg whites tend to stay a little flat. I'm gonna let the egg whites get a little foamy while mixing on speed 4 before I sprinkle in the sugar. Otherwise, the sugar just tends to sink straight to the bottom. Ooh, that looks perfect. We got some nice glossy peaks that are still soft, but holding their shape. So we're gonna have a medium stiff peak. Bringing the yolks back in, and we're going to sift our flour mixture. We're gonna do half the batch here. Always sift the flour when you're making a sponge because it aerates the flour and allows it to fold in a lot easier, gets out all the lumps. And then we're going to fold that in by just going around the bowl and then folding it over the top. So you scoop around the bottom, bring it to the middle. And it's gonna look a little dry, that's okay. All right, and I'm gonna add the rest of the flour in. Okay, now we have our very thick, kind of dry batter. And we're gonna add in our meringue to lighten it all back up. We're gonna add in 1/3 of this, and I'm just going to fold it in. Just fold it in. This is the sacrificial meringue that you just kind of get it all together. It's gonna lose quite a bit of volume, but in the process, it's going to lighten up the other batter, and then it will be much easier to fold in the second part. Okay, then we're gonna add in the rest. If you wanted to make this gluten-free, you can use gluten-free flour or even just almond flour. And then we're going to carefully fold this in, trying not to disturb our egg whites too much. Don't forget to add in your vanilla. Just continuously scraping the bottom of the bowl, folding it into the center, occasionally going down the middle, cutting through. And then once this is homogeneous, we can go ahead and pipe it. So go ahead and load up your piping bag with an 806 piping tip, and we're going to fill that with our ladyfinger batter. Also be sure to have some powdered sugar and a sifter nearby because you're gonna need that in a minute. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a piece of paper, 8.5 by 11 inches as my template. That's gonna be the exact amount of ladyfingers that we're gonna need for our charlotte cake. So place that piece of paper underneath your parchment paper on top of your cake pan. And then use your piping bag to pipe long, skinny strips of the batter with about 1/8 of an inch between. No more than 1/4 inch, because we want these ladyfingers to actually fuse together as they bake so that we don't have to assemble our cake. And you're like, Liz, this is so tall. There's a way taller than I need. Well, this is the trick. After they're done baking, we're going to cut them in half and they're gonna be the perfect height for the whole charlotte cake. So much easier than doing it individually. We're also going to make discs that are going to be the layers in between our cake. Normally you would use the ladyfingers to kind of make that layer, but because we have our batter, we can just pipe it into the shape that we need it to be. I have a template on the blog post that you can download that is exactly the shape that you need the disc to be if you're using an 8-inch cake ring like I am. So after you've piped all of your cake batter, you want to go ahead and dust the surface with a good healthy amount of powdered sugar. The sugar dissolves almost immediately, so you want to dust more powdered sugar on top. You want to be able to see it. And it creates this shell so that when the ladyfingers start to bake, they rise and puff up a lot. If you don't do this step, they actually don't puff up at all. So this batch of ladyfingers is enough to make enough ladyfingers for probably about 2 of these 8-inch pans. If you feel confident and you've made this recipe before, you probably only need to make a half of a batch of the ladyfinger batter, but personally, I like to have a few extra just in case something just doesn't look right and I want to do a switch out, or you can just make a few extra ladyfinger cookies as a snack. So we're gonna go ahead and bake these in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes until they're golden brown and set in the center. Go ahead and set your ladyfingers aside and let them cool down while we make our Bavarian cream. I'm going to add my powdered gelatin to the milk and whisk, and we're gonna let this bloom for about 5 minutes. Go ahead and add your heavy cream to your pot over medium heat, and we're gonna add in our split vanilla bean, and half the sugar, which I learned from Christoph, helps the cream to not burn. I'm gonna add in the salt, and we just wanna bring this to a boil. All right, our milk is bubbling. I'm gonna turn off the heat. So we're gonna add our leftover sugar into the egg yolks. And then as soon as our milk is hot, we're going to start adding in 1/3 of the mixture into the egg yolks. You just do a little bit at a time. We're trying to basically get the egg yolk mixture and the milk mixture to be the same temperature. And then we can add that back in. Just continuously whisk. So then we're just gonna cook this until it's thick enough to coat the back of a spoon without dripping down. That's called a la nappe. And then we're gonna strain our mixture. Look at that beautiful custard. And then while this is still hot, we're going to add in our gelatin. I'm gonna place the mixture just into an ice bath to just get it cooling down. All right, so I'm gonna cut my little fingers here. I'm just measuring at 4 inches, right in the center, and then cut that straight in half, and then the bottom will be perfectly straight. Now this is ready to go inside. I'm gonna flip these over, and I've got my homemade simple syrup here flavored with vanilla. And then I'm going to generously syrup the back of these guys because they are pretty dry. All right, then we're just gonna fold this in. That's 1/2, and then put the other half in. So I just had one little gap right here, so I just filled it in with my extra one. And then we have our round guys right here that should fit right in the center. And then I'm just gonna soak this bottom layer with some more simple syrup. Okay, so now we're gonna set this aside and we're gonna come back to our Bavarian cream. This is cooled down, so now we can whip up our whipped cream. So cold, heavy whipping cream into the bowl of your stand mixer with the whisk. And we're gonna mix on medium until we have firm but moist peaks. So right at the point where it's able to hold its shape is where you wanna stop. And then whenever we are mixing something that is lighter in density, we have to do a sacrifice. We're gonna take 1/3 of this and just mix it in here. This just lightens everything up so that the rest of the whipped cream folds in better. Now we're going to gently fold everything in, trying not to get rid of any of that air that we built up. This is looking delicious. Now we can start layering this into our cake. I'm gonna add a little bit of strawberry preserves on top because that's gonna soak into our layer of ladyfingers. Click the link above to get my strawberry reduction recipe, which will be delicious. And now we're gonna pipe in half of the Bavarian cream. I'm using a piping bag because it's just a lot easier and get it nice and level. And it will also help you to avoid holes. Okay, so now we're gonna layer in some nice, beautiful strawberries. And then we're gonna add our next layer of cake. The great thing about actually making your cake layers like this is it helps hold everything together. We're gonna add some more strawberry. I'm gonna pipe the second layer of the Bavarian cream and then smooth it out. I'm gonna just do some little dollops using a 1M piping tip and some more whipped cream. That's probably about a 1/2 cup of whipped cream. And I'm gonna just do some little shells. So we have probably about 2 tablespoons of apricot jam here, and we're just gonna thin it down with maybe 2 teaspoons of water. I microwave the jam for about 15 seconds just to get it warm, and we just want this to be really thin consistency, and this makes a really good glaze for fresh berries, and it also tastes really nice. And I'm gonna strain onto my berries and just give those a little bit of a toss. And this is just gonna glaze them, make them look really beautiful and juicy. And it keeps them from drying out. And then you can just pile those berries on there. So now you want to place this into the fridge and chill it for at least 2 hours so that it's nice and firm before you cut it. All right, our charlotte cake is set. Now I can demold it. Now, to prevent Mrs. Charlotte from falling apart, traditionally you wrap a little ribbon around the middle. I'm gonna add a couple little fresh flowers. This is the perfect cake for Valentine's, Galentine's, Mother's Day, little last minute picnic. It's good for everything. Oh boy, I cannot wait to taste this. This looks so good. But first, if you guys like this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. Ladyfingers are so moist. All that syrup has soaked in. Our Bavarian cream is all set. Oh yeah. So good. Thanks for watching, guys.